Awesome. So, hi everyone and welcome. My name is Shannon Morales. I am the founder and CEO of Trabaja, your modern day work tribe. We're a digital talent marketplace and community for underrepresented tech and startup enthusiasts. Our goal is to connect job seekers in the tech industry to amazing tech startups and forward thinking companies. Today, we have Ali, who is here to talk about their work life culture, to talk about, the roles that they currently have available. And hopefully, you'll be able to just get a sense of what it's like to work at a company like Ali. I think startups are so unique in the way that they operate that it's very hard to kind of have a one way of talking about all startups because they all aren't like cookie cutter and fit into one mold. So I think it's important to have companies like Ali show up and express, what makes their company unique and great. We have two representatives from Ali. We have Christina Diemer. She is a UX user experience developer at Ali, and we have Max McMillan, who's a senior user experience professional at Ali. And so I am going to turn it over to Ali right now. So, Christina.
Awesome. Hi, I'm Christina Deemer. I'm a UX developer at Ali, and I'm here with Max, who is a senior UX developer at Ali, and we're going to chat with you today about work life at Ali.
All right, so what is Ali? The technical elevator pitch we give is that we are strategists, researchers, designers, and developers who craft custom digital experiences for publishers, nonprofit institutions, museums, and brands. So we'll talk more about the type of clients we work with in a couple slides, but think large-scale web apps and websites for mostly nonprofits and media journalist corporations. And then we are a team of technologists, designers, scrum leaders, people leaders, putting all those products together for our clients. Now we're going to introduce ourselves a little bit more to you.
So this is me. I'm a career changer. I worked in fundraising and arts management for more than a decade before I became a developer. I worked at a smaller agency before I joined Ali, and I learned about Ali while I was at the Museum Computer Network conference, where I was giving a presentation on accessibility for in-gallery experiences. I've become a bit of an accessibility champion. I'm a certified web accessibility specialist. I've spoken about web accessibility at a few different conferences, and I'm also very passionate about headless WordPress, and I've spoken at a few conferences about that as well. And at Ali, I've really had the chance to really grow my development skills and my public speaking skills as well. So let's hear a little bit more about Max.
So hi, I'm Max. I identify as transgender, non-binary, and my pronouns are they, them. I am a senior user experience developer at Ali. So that's the job that handles most of the front-end technologies, how the user experiences the website or app that they're using. And I live, as I mentioned, in Tucson right now, very, very southern part of the US, with my partner who teaches at the University of Arizona. I also, outside of Ali, teach in a coding boot camp run through the University of Arizona. And we have a toddler. It's almost 2. Her name is Ida, and she is a very troublesome, wonderful, brilliant little girl right now. And it's amazing because I also was a career manager I actually started in the performing arts. I was a child actor, and I worked as an actor professionally for 25 years until I was in my early 30s when I realized that I didn't want to do it anymore. I just didn't like it. I'd been doing it too long to see that, and I got real with myself and said, nope, I'm going to do something else. And I've always been really interested in tech, and I was able to switch gears at that time and have then been making my living from development for about 15 years now. Ali is the third agency I've worked for, but I also freelanced and had my own sole proprietorship business for about a decade. And I decided to drop that when I saw the rising trend of remote work and companies like Ali sort of like stepping into the field. It was really important for me to have strong work-life balance, especially with a partner and now with a baby. And as my bio says, I have two very demanding large dogs who you might hear in the background. I apologize in advance if they decide to start wrestling, because they like to do that when I talk. And so that they are frequently on my Zoom calls at work. But yeah, I came to Ali a couple years ago. I knew some people who had started working here, and they said it was a great place. And I wholeheartedly agree. I've been here a little over 2 years now, and I'm involved in a lot of media sites, and also I'm a member of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. So I will talk about that more at the end of the presentation. But first, we're going to head back into what is Ali, who is Ali, and who do we serve when we talk about these enterprise level clients that we're working for?
So I'm not going to read all of this text, but we are a full service agency. So we do design, development, editorial strategy, accessibility audits, and more. We serve very large publishers, including News Corp, Meredith. I know Max has worked with NBC, the New York Post, Kaiser, Brookings. I think a number of the logos on here. And I've worked with Direct Relief, Fortune, Colorado Public Radio, Roll Call, other large scale publishers and nonprofits. So we were founded in 2010. So we're sort of a 10-year-old startup, I guess. And we have more than 70 employees and 50 clients across sort of the United States, Canada, Europe, and South America. So reaching a lot of people.
Yeah, I would say that while we may not be a technical startup in that we didn't just start, we still value the sort of iterative process that a lot of startups follow. And something that I've really come to appreciate about Ali is that we can change and grow, and with input from all the employees and all the executives together as a group, we can try something different. If something isn't working, we can branch out into a new area if we have interest, if we're interested in working in that way. So there's a lot of values that we've managed to hang on to, even though the company has grown from just two developers in New York City in 2010 to 70 employees spanning globally now 3 countries. We've got people traveling, also doing remote years where they're traveling in other places. So while our primary employees are in the US, and then we have folks in Canada, and we have some folks in Brazil, we have other people who are frequently signing on from Mexico, from Ireland, from Portugal, people moving around the globe as well.
Yeah, I have a teammate who's in, I was going to say, I have a teammate in Australia. So covering a lot of ground there.
Yeah. Okay. So we see you, person here from Lagos. That is exciting. Yeah. And everyone here from the US as well, but we're here for everyone. So let's talk a little bit about what life at Ali actually looks like. We can go to the next slide. So as we said, 72 team members currently, 10 teams 4+ countries, 21 states. We are all widely distributed, and we were distributed this way before the pandemic. We were fully remote before the pandemic, and we were fully distributed. There was a time in Allie's past where they had sort of a headquarters office space in Manhattan, and that quickly came to a demise because people, wanted to balance their work life in a different manner, and founders were really open to that. And the very first remote developer they hired, a female developer from Michigan, is still working at Allie, and she's one of the original employees. But they brought her on as the first remote person, and then from there out, we all joined remotely from our little corners, which is pretty awesome. This picture is from our pre-pandemic retreat. We had a 10-year anniversary retreat in Cancun, which was awesome. This all expenses paid experience we got to have together. We got together for 3 days, and then some people were there for longer, depending on what they were doing with the company. And got to see each other in real life. And we do hold regular in-person retreats, obviously, when it's safe and possible. It's something that we haven't done since this was January of 2020. So this was literally right before things started shutting down. And we will probably have a retreat like this, an in-person opportunity again in 2022, we're thinking, but everything can change between now and then, as we have learned. So we're looking forward to that. We do enjoy getting together in person when at all possible. But in the meantime, we spend a lot of time talking in Slack. We spend a lot of time in Zoom on calls like this with each other, sharing work, sharing our screens, pair programming together. And we organize all of that using the Scrum methodology. So Scrum is a method of product development. It was actually developed also, I think, about 10 or 15 years ago. There's a man named JJ Sutherland who is still the head of Scrum. And we, in 2016, Allie had been trying a bunch of different ways to govern itself. And in 2016, the founders caught wind of Scrum as a method of organizing teams and product work, and went all in on it and transitioned the whole company to using Scrum. And so that is a large part of what we do each day. One thing else that I want to point out from that last slide is just that the guiding principle we have, thanks Christina, is you are an adult, you can govern yourself. We are really a group of people working together as adults with our own lives, with our own offices, or in a co-working space somewhere else. And I really appreciate personally that Allie sees me not just as an employee on a product team. I am a person. I am fully fleshed out. I have a family. I have other obligations, and I can get my work done. And I can be responsible for the tasks on my plate. I can be responsible for learning new things that I need to learn for this job, and I can contribute to the company pretty wholeheartedly, which is great. That really, all of our people policies here stem from this statement: you're an adult, you can govern yourself. So let's go on now to a day in the life. What does a day in the life at Allie look like? Christina, do you want to talk a little bit about your experiences?
Sure. So, I think I think it's important to mention that like everybody's organized into teams. The teams are very self-organized, and every team experience is a little different because they're made of different people. And so I've had teams. I've been on a team that was very that like to swarm or work on a lot of problems together. I've had teams where people were a little bit more like to work on things on their own. And but we um, but we all sort of follow these Scrum practices, and that helps provide a sort of overlay or framework for how we do our work and how we get things done. I just to be very literal about it, I log on at about like 9 o'clock in the morning, and I'm somebody who like I work a sort of normal work day. And not everybody does that. I have a coach who has who has 4 kids, and he logs on pretty early, and then he logs off, has breakfast with his kids, and logs back on, and then logs off at lunch, has lunch with his kids, and logs like works for the afternoon, and just makes sure that he has time for his family. As Max said, it's important that people are treated like people. And as a UX developer, I I work I most of my work is a lot of front end tickets. I work in React. I work with styled components. Um, I work with yeah, mostly React and styled components, and obviously, like, we're a WordPress shop, so we work with WordPress. Um, and and I work with those enterprise level media clients that we were talking about. I often interface with clients during the day, um, and there's not a lot of sort of bureaucracy of, oh, only so and so can talk to a client. Like a lot of, if you have a question to ask a client, you can usually just sort of ping them in the appropriate channel in Slack. Um, and um, and I think that a lot of these things just contribute to the overall, as Max was saying, the philosophy um, of you're an adult, you can govern yourself, you will get the tools that you need to do your job, um, and to build a successful product. um, but there isn't a lot of, you don't have a technical manager who's going to be looking over your shoulder and making sure um, that doing your you're doing your work.
Yeah, that's a big one here, and that's something that it takes people a lot of time sometimes to get used to. Um, One of the guiding principles of Scrum is that the product teams get just enough of the right information at the right time. And that's sort of how a lot of how we function as teams at Alley work, both in terms of our interactions with our clients. We're talking to clients and saying, what do you need? And they're laying out what they desire. And we're taking that user story back and turning it into tickets and tasks and ultimately apps on websites for them. And we have a really great flat communication hierarchy here. So that means what Christina was saying, if I'm working on something for a client and I have a question, each client is different and each team is different. I'm someone who likes to work really solo, and so I usually will ask one of the Scrum roles on my team, either my Scrum Master or my product owner, to say, hey, do you know the answer to this question first? And if they don't know the answer, they'll usually say, no, why don't you go ask the client? And we have really great relationships with our clients, and we have them in specific client facing Slack channels that we can talk to them directly and get the information we need, because as we said, we're adults working on our problems and we are problem solvers, and that's what we're doing. So we remove impediments to solve problems. And that's also part of why our teams are very self-organized. So what I experience on my team is going to be very different from the experience Christina has had on her team and what other folks at Alley have had on their teams. I'm having a fun time right now because one of my very best friends, IRL in real life, has just joined Alley as a Scrum Master. And he had never worked in Scrum before, and he had never worked in tech before, but he was a smart, able guy. He did a lot of research, did a lot of homework. We'll go through what our interview process is later on, but he was able to get through the whole interview process, and he was such a great fit and had such a good ethic and personality that Allie said, we are going to find a team for you. And so he joined a team, and it's been fun to share kind of stories with him daily in Slack, and then we have phone calls and whatnot afterwards. And because his team is 100% functioning differently than mine, not worse, not better, just different. They're made of different people with different needs and different schedules and different clients, and so that team is allowed to sort of mold itself how it works best. My team, I'm on Camp Media, and we're working on, as we said, a lot of large media sites, media journalism publishers. And, I'm the most Western time zone, but I have a teammate in Boston who likes to log on later in the day. So she starts her workday around 11 a.m. or noon her time. We don't have the expectation of set business hours as long as you are showing up for your team, getting your work done. Those are sort of the main tenets, and communicating well. You know, we are really, really strong communicators in Slack, over Zoom, any way we can, written, etc. Like code comments, every way we can communicate, we're doing it, and it's pretty great. It's pretty great that way. Let's go on next. That sort of dovetails into the company values. Like the reason why we are able to self-organize as teams is that the company has actually empowered us to do so. So as we've been saying, our primary interactions are on Slack and on Zoom. We log in, we say hi when we come to work. Hey, we're here. We keep hours based on what works for us, our client responsibilities, and our teams. So for instance, I am actually on a day off today. This is I have a PTO day today because I didn't have childcare. So I went to my team last week and said, "Hey, I'm going to have to take Monday and Tuesday off next week. Can we? Is that cool? How can we work around that?" And we worked together, and we said, "Yeah, okay. I don't have childcare. I'm going to take my day off, and I don't have any guilt or stress around this." So it's just lovely because I know my team has my back, and I know that I'm supported by Ali at the top level to do that, to spend the day taking care of my toddler because my childcare fell through. And that's not the case in a lot of places, you know, which is not to say that we don't work very hard. We work very, very hard, and oftentimes we have very grueling schedules when we're doing a product launch. But we balance that also. We really try to see each other as people.
And
And Scrum. Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, like, and another reason that there's sort of that you can feel more comfortable taking that time is that we do have the unlimited PTO. So
Yeah.
you don't have to worry about, oh, that this is, if you take time in, you know, if you, that you're reducing the number of vacation days that you have. And in fact, I've gotten, if you don't take a certain amount of days, like you will be encouraged by the company to schedule time off. Scheduling time off is very important. So it's not just that there's unlimited PTO. It's almost like there's a minimum that you should take.
Yep, definitely. Folks on my team, I'll tell you, I don't have that. No one is telling me to take more time off. I'm like, yo, I've got a toddler, I'm taking off. But I also have teammates who have had encouragement, like, hey, we're coming towards the end of the year and we see you've only taken 2 days off this year, you know. And some of that is that they just like working. The two men I'm thinking of in particular actually just like working that much. They'll log on even when they are on their days off. And again, you do not have to do that. That is not an expectation. That is how they like to work, and they're able to do that. And then they're encouraged to take time off. So then they schedule their vacations with their family or their time around the holidays with that. So it's very flexible in that way, as long as you, again, are being an adult, governing yourself, getting your work done. It's not going to be a good fit for people who like a lot of rigid structure or who like a lot of management or hierarchy. Those are people that I would suggest seek a different company culture than we have, because we're very much we're just very grounded in some of these values, and we really expect people to show up with their best selves and work it out, which is what we do. It's fun. Yeah. So talking about unlimited time off sort of takes us to this next slide. Christina, I also saw that we had a question about coaches in the chat,
Oh.
and I know that that's something that's really important to you. So why don't we talk about that first, and then I can talk more about the other benefits we've got going on.
Sure. So coaching is one of my favorite benefits from at Ali. It's something that I found very enriching. So we don't have managers, and so coaches are not managers. They are somebody who they are a peer. They are not on your team though. And they are somebody that you can get support from to discuss technical issues, to discuss how to make progress on your professional goals, to get support if you're having any issues with your team, um, and to or to help you get the most out of your time at Alley. Um, and my coach has been important in my journey to become more of an accessibility specialist. He has his PhD in web accessibility, and is somebody who has like helped encourage me to get my certification. And we've done some of our talks have been together, but and um, he's sort of been like my go-to person at Alley. Coaching, though, like everything else, sort of looks the relationship can look a little different based on the what the coachee wants to get out of the experience. Um, and some people want want to focus exclusively on their what their professional goals are. Some people want to talk through things that live in the sort of liminal space between personal and professional. People can use this support sort of how they need to, um, but it's not a manager. This person isn't going to evaluate your work, um, and they are not going to provide guidance in terms of everyday everyday deliverables or anything like that. It's a really it's a really sort of special program that we are also we're working to make it easier for people to change their coach. Maybe you just want to get a different perspective from people. The coaching program has opened up to make it possible for more people to become coaches. I became a coach this year. It's been such a rewarding experience for me. um, I really value the time that I get to spend with my coachees. Um, and again, like I think this also speaks the changes and the evolution of the program sort of speaks to what Max was talking about earlier regarding like how Allie iterates on things. So we've even iterated on these internal programs like coaching. So this is a really great benefit for me. Um, some other benefits that are important are things like we've talked about, like flexible schedules, um, and unlimited PTO. We also have professional development budgets. So if you want to take a class or attend a conference, there can be a budget for that. Um, there's also there's an equipment stipend I needed before the pandemic. I worked at a co-working space, which um, Ali provided the support so that I could do that. But then when the pandemic hit, I had to work from home. I needed a new office chair. My equipment budget covered a nice, comfortable office chair. Um, and we also have a lunch budget. Usually, if you work at a startup or in tech, a lot of times they bring in or cater lunch to the office. Sort of in lieu of that, everybody gets a lunch budget each month to spend on, whether it's on groceries or Taco Bell or um, whatever you'd like, and it just helps make things a little bit more comfortable for everybody. Max, what are your sort of favorite benefits?
Oh, I love my lunch stipend. I love that Allie trusts me to have a Brex, a company MasterCard, so that I don't have to get purchases, small purchases up to $100. I don't need to get approval. I do need to turn in my receipts for those. But once again, I have definitely used my office budget to buy an extension that puts my camera really close to me, and I have a pop guard now and a microphone, things to make your work work for you wherever you are. Ali also provides your laptop, which is something that the other two agencies I worked with did not do. I was using my personal laptop for that work, and Ali, it was very nice that Ali sent me in my first box when I got hired was a MacBook Pro and a bunch of cool swag, hoodies, and a coffee machine and a pound of nice coffee to make on my own. So and then, we also have a host of the more normal benefits like a 401k with a company match, medical, dental, and vision insurance. One of the really great things we do at Ali is profit sharing. So there are thresholds that we hit in any given quarter, and if we hit a profitability threshold, we that amount gets equally distributed among all employees who've been with the company more than a year. So anything over. So, obviously last year this wasn't happening very much because everything was sort of slow. I did really appreciate that Ali did not lay anyone off because of the pandemic. They invested internally, and they had been managing our cash reserves in such a way that um, they were able to keep everybody with a job for that whole period of time. And now that things are ramping up again, we're starting to see more profitability again, and so we will start to get profit sharing payouts in our paychecks at the end of each quarter as the company continues to grow. Something else on that note, this isn't a benefit specifically, but something I think it's important to mention, that kind of goes with the last slide about company values, is that Ali is very transparent from the top down. Every month we have an all employee call that we call our town hall, and during that time our CEO goes over the financial picture of the company based on the reports they get from the accountants, and talks about the projects we're working on, talks about, this project is over budget, this project is under budget, this project is profitable, this is what we're looking at, this is what's coming in the sales pipeline. But those numbers are all available to us, so we always know and have access to how well Ali is doing and how we are contributing to Ali being both profitable and a good place to work that's not like overly grueling and going to cause a ton of burnout, right? And at any point, I also have access, and Christina has access, every employee has access to any of the executives. Like I mentioned, we have a flat communication hierarchy, and that means that I can put a meeting on the calendar with the CEO and say, hey, I had an idea, or hey, I was confused in the town hall when you were talking about, X, Y, and Z financials about that one project. Could we talk more about it? That's open at all levels. Which is great. The executive team does function as the final decision makers for anything large happening in the company, but everybody's input and voice is actually valued. And I cannot say that about any other place I have worked, that I have been able to sit down with, the director of my department and Christina's department, which is the director of technology, and say, hey, this happened and I don't understand. Can you give me more? Can you give me personally more information about it? Not, can I go to my manager who goes to their manager who goes around and talks around in circles about it. I'm able to sit down and with someone on Zoom and say, hey, let's discuss this thing that happened, and see if we can meet common ground, So yeah, so I love the benefit of our open communication. I love our equipment budget and professional development stipend. I've been able to take a coding boot camp that Ali paid for, and that Ali allowed me to take time out of my workday to invest in. That's also something that is continually improving. We are iterating on how to make professional development a regular part of our workday. Even though we have some teams who are very overloaded with lots of client work, which is why we're hiring, why you're all here, and why we are excited to be talking to you, is because we need more people to help because we've got so much work right now. I love that Ali will update my MacBook Pro every 2 years if I need it. I love the culture. I love that we have an open Slack. We have a lot of culture channels in Slack about like folks who are interested in gaming, folks who are interested in pets, parents, folks who are interested in beer or photography. We have one Slack channel called Beats and Rhymes. Um, it's we're a pretty fun group of people too. Something new that we're launching is actual official affinity groups too for some of the groups of people at Ali that might fall under more protected status in terms of diversity. And I'll talk about that when we get to our diversity slide in a couple of slides. But we are forming more official affinity groups that are going to start launching events across the company. For instance, there could be a women's affinity group. There's currently a women's culture channel, but we're going to make an official women and female identified affinity group that will be hosting events and doing fun things for Women's History Month and stuff like that. So we got through that. Oh no, I'll talk about this later, but I was gonna say we got to that point through a lot of the work that we've been doing over the last year around diversity. But before we get there, let's talk more about the open roles that we have right now.
Yeah, we have a few different roles. We are looking for every kind of developer position that we have, Laravel developers, UX developers, software developers. We are also looking for digital designers and agile process leaders. Agile process leaders is our title for essentially for Scrum Masters. But again, as Max mentioned about their friend, that you don't have to be a certified Scrum Master to apply. We've hired people who have no Scrum experiences but have the right set of skills and experience. Um, there's more information about what we're looking for the developers on our website. Um, the I think it's um, I think it's also maybe helpful to mention when I initially applied, I applied the for the software developer position, and through the interview process, they were like, "You're a better fit for a UX developer." So if you're not sure where you fit in, because maybe you have very general, like you have general tech skills or whatever, like just start yourself down the pipeline and they can help sort of position you in the right place.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a really good point. And as Christina mentioned, I had one of my, and I've mentioned, I had one of my best friends just get hired at Ali as a Scrum Master. He had no Scrum experience. He had a lot of project management experience, but never had held an official project manager title anywhere. He was on the board of a nonprofit. He still is on the board of a nonprofit. He had worked with a lot of arts facilities in a facilities management role, but he was able to translate that because he was interested enough in tech, you know, very quick to learn tech things and tech terminology. He went and he listened to every episode of Two Scrums Up that had been published and through the interview process. And now he got hired as a Scrum Master. Has paid for him to do his certified Scrum Master training. And so he's actually now completed that and he's leading a team as a Scrum Master. Whereas 6 months ago, he was literally working at a mortgage loan processing firm at the bottom of the food chain. Um, so there's a lot of opportunity, even if you don't think you fit uh, the roles directly, depending on what skill sets you're bringing. So hiring and diversity. So excuse me. So Ali is absolutely dedicated to diversifying our workforce. And one of the things that like this partnership with Trabaja is one of our outreach efforts. We've also been putting up, we've also made a lot of effort to put up our postings at a variety, a really wide variety of diverse job boards. So you can, we're continually, if you know of any that you're looking at and you want to shoot them to us in the chat, we're always adding to our list, but we're posting all over the place. We're posting Women Who Code, Black Girls in Tech. We're a partner with Out in Tech. We're a partner with, we have a couple of accessibility boards that we're posting on. So we're trying to really expand our opportunities for the greatest amount of people. And this is a little peek at what our hiring process actually looks like. So it's pretty long. It's very thorough. It can be very intimidating, but I think by the end of it, you get a sense as the job seeker of whether or not you'd be a good fit here. And Ali gets a really good sense of you and And if you're someone who has the right skill set and also is a good person, is a good culture fit. Like we're looking for people who are fun to have in our Slack channel and on our Zooms every day, you know? So the first step is that you apply through ally.co/careers. The open job postings are there. You do an initial sort of phone screening with one of the people who are working on hiring here. We've got a couple of great folks doing that screening, and then you first get set up with your 30-minute 30-minute interview. I'll say the initial screening also covers looking at your code samples and your portfolios, your resumes, like looking at your actual application is what happens in that initial screening process. And then you get set up with a 30-minute phone interview, which is kind of like a nice little intro. You get to start asking questions and we get to start asking you questions. Then you'll get a longer meeting with someone in HR, usually a couple people here. Kelsey has been our main HR contact for a long time, all the way up to Bridget, who is our COO, who will do one of these interviews with you. If you move past that second interview, the second 60-minute interview listed here, you go into a third 60-minute interview, which would be with the top person in your department. So my 60-minute interview and probably Christina's 60-minute interview at the end was with the director of technology because we were coming in for a developer role. My friend's 60-minute interview, which was with Bridget, our COO, because he was coming in as an agile process leader role. And then, I'm excited about this one. The really fun interview is also the most intimidating one, but you do a 60-minute Slack interview with a group of randomized Ally people. You get invited for an hour into our Slack, and it's sort of a rapid fire Q&A, but also really fun. It's not just like, you know, what sort of unit testing do you do? And do you do that in PHP or do you do that in JavaScript? Blah, 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 blah. It's also like, is a hot dog a sandwich? Discuss.
And I think the fun part about this is that candidates get to see how we interact with each other as well, because it's not just, it's a half dozen people or so. So you get to see how we interact with each other, how the flow of communication feels to you. We get to see what kind of, like, what your preferred emoji are. But I will say that, as a somewhat like older person in tech, I had been using Slack years for years before I joined Ally, but you don't have to be, it's not about, are you using cool terminology? Are you using the emoji that's the hot thing now? It's not about, it's not about, you're not going to be graded also if you are like the most fun person in the world. Like, a lot of people, if you shouldn't be concerned about your social, like if you have like A+ number one social skills, or if you're
We
feeling
take
like
all the weirdos too.
we take yes. So I think that's important as well. I personally, like, I can feel sometimes like I'm a little bit different or a little bit of an outsider, and um and and what I focused on with the Slack interview was just, not overthinking my responses, and just like responding quickly, trying to have a good time. Everybody gets nervous in interviews. Like, no, like, straight up, it can be intimidating, but it's Slack is our primary mode of communication, so it's helpful for you to see if this would be comfortable for you to do this kind of communication for, in your everyday work life consistently. Because it will be more Slack, just answering questions with your teammates and just having these informal conversations. And that's what it's more about. Again, if you're not comfortable, if you're not comfortable communicating over Slack um, all the
This
time.
probably this probably would be a difficult learning curve for you.
Yeah,
Not
totally.
impossible. I
Not
won't say
impossible.
impossible, but
Absolutely.
yes, it is our
Absolutely.
primary mode of communication. Slack and
So
Zoom.
awesome. I'm just going to jump in really quick. We have only, I know this time went by so fast. We only have 10 more minutes left. So, and I know there's going to be a lot of questions. I do want to get to the diversity slide, but maybe like one cent, like, maybe one comment from Max as well as Christina about what the diversity efforts at Alley look like. And then we can hop into a live Q&A so that the participants can turn their videos on and ask the questions.
Yeah, that sounds great. I will jump quickly into diversity and say that it is a primary goal of my career to champion diversity, and also part of why I not only came to Alley, but why I've stayed at Alley. Uh, we have a diversity and inclusion working committee. We formed it in January of last year. It was partner initiated, so it's led from the top, like the top part of Alley said, hey, we need to do this. And we were lucky that we had already been in place while all of the various events of 2020 unfolded, because we were able to become sort of a safe haven and also guiding arm in terms of Alley's diversity practices. We are inclusive because we don't believe in one-hit DEI wonders. We believe in praxis, which means acting and reflecting on the world in order to change it. And when we say we're going to take action, we act transparently. We've published, you can find on our website, our DEI pledge, what we're committed to do, specifically around areas such as retention and growth and hiring and demographics. We recognize that we are currently not as diverse as we would like to be, and we are actively trying to change that, both through our hiring practices, through the partnerships that we're making with underrepresented groups. We have also had a long-standing consultancy agreement with a company called Culture Cipher. Nadia Jones is a diversity specialist based in Brooklyn, and she is absolutely incredible, and she has been such a valuable resource for us. We have done company-wide implicit bias training, company-wide how to be an anti-racist training, and we have her, kind of in our back pocket, helping us move forward with all of our language and initiatives to keep Alley as inclusive as possible moving forward. And that's what I'll say about that, unless Christina has anything else to add.
Now, the only thing that I'm going to say is that diversity is important to me. It makes everything that we do better, it makes us stronger. We create better products when we're not as diverse as we should be. It's definitely a weakness for us. That this is why accessibility is important for me. Accessibility, if like accessibility is how, if we're not building inclusive, accessible products, then we're hypocrites. And it's very important to me that everybody can use the stuff that we build. Um, and um, and yeah, I think that's it. I really just, I'm sorry we took so much time. I do want to hear from folks.
Yeah, there's good questions. Let's go to that.
Awesome.
I'm gonna stop my share.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. So let's hop into questions. So everybody turn your camera on. I know that everyone has had some really amazing questions in the chat. I felt like through the presentation, though, some of the questions were answered. So I want to allow you to, get on camera. Let us see who you are and ask a question. So how would Allie differentiate those who applied after today's presentation?
There is in our hiring process, there is an optional diversity questionnaire that each candidate may or may not answer, and that's where it says, where did you hear about us? If you heard about us through our Trabaja partnership, and we are actively tracking those metrics and trying to improve them. So as we reach out and partner with organizations like Trabaja, we are making sure that we're paying attention to who's coming through these channels, because we want to shift it from, the standard stereotypical tech white cis het dude. We have a lot of really lovely of those people, and we're looking for a lot of really lovely other people as well.
Yeah, so shout us out, please.
Hmm.
So put Trabaja on,
Yeah.
as a reference. That would be really great. And so, are you? Um, Elsa said, "What are your suggestions on how to get past the application and into an interview?"
I think that it's helpful. This may be just a very like basic response to this, but I think it's helpful to be very clear about what position you're looking for, why you're interested in working with Ali, and what your skills are. Just be very clear and authentic to who you are. Um, and and I saw the next question: do you hire people in Nigeria and Africa? I Nigeria has such an exciting tech scene right now,
Mm.
and we don't not hire anybody from anywhere. So yeah, why not? Um,
Absolutely.
Sorry, is it okay if Yusuf, can you ask your questions live so we can um kind of see get some different faces on the camera on the recording?
Yeah, definitely. Hi, I'm Yusuf. I'm a career changer, and a lot of the times when I see the user experience, mm, something that comes to my mind is design. So I was wondering, how much does your work involved in design, and if not or minimal, who is the designer, and what's your collaboration between you and the designer?
It depends on the project and the client. I would say most of our user experience developers do not actively design. We do have an open role for a designer, and we do have a couple people who have a tandem role where they are primarily designers, but they do some front end coding as well. Because we work in Scrum, we follow sort of a T shape. The long part of your T, which is your skill set, and then you have the cross of your T, which is your new areas that you're branching out on. So short answer is most UX developers are primarily working on their long T, which is front end coding, JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and then some design, but we do have dedicated designers and a dedicated design role as well. Occasionally, so like on internal projects where we have design needs, those are the people who will work on that. Occasionally, we have clients who bring their designs to us, and we do a lot of that as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
Yeah, no problem.
Natalia?
Can you hear me?
Hi, I'm Natalia. Oh,
Hello.
go ahead.
I
Okay,
should go.
I'll go ahead and ask my question. So you really emphasize the lack of managers. So how do evaluations happen at your company?
That's a super good question. We do a round of year-end reviews, which is also through your coach, discussing with your coach, where your team you solicit peer feedback and feedback from pretty much anyone in the company. I could solicit feedback today from the director of technology if I wanted to. But at the end of each year, there's a round of reviews where you solicit feedback from 5 to 6 coworkers, and you discuss that feedback with your coach, and it is all formalized in a document and tracked. This process is also something that we're iterating on to make it better. This is how it's been done, so it's not necessarily what it's going to look like through this next iteration, but you do have a record of year-end reviews. There's always performance reviews that come up quarterly with your coach. So these things are being considered as we go forward and measured. You set development goals and professional goals through your coaching relationship and sort of work towards that on your own schedule with them is the main through line. Did I miss anything, Christina?
I think that sounds pretty accurate. Yeah.
Awesome. So we will take Sashama's question and then Carolyn.
Hi everyone, my name is Shushma. Thank you so much for the presentation. It's been amazing to hear about the company and you guys. So I just had a quick question. I went through the website and the careers page, and I see the developer's role require PHP as the basic skill. So I'm just curious, like I have no familiarity with PHP. I'm a Java developer, so Is it okay to apply, and how will it process through the application?
I would say that while we don't currently have any Java projects, it doesn't mean that we won't. And also, if you do write Java and you are interested in transitioning to write Java and PHP, and you feel comfortable with that, that would be something that you could stress in your application. We are PHP. The company started as working with Drupal, and now we work primarily with WordPress. But we also are branching out. We're looking for a Laravel developer because we're doing a lot of Laravel projects. Again, that's still PHP. It doesn't mean that we won't have something coming down the pipeline. And so the more we know about you and your interest and willingness, the better we could in the future, if we don't have anything pop out and say, hey, we know this great candidate came, through our Trabaja partnership, and we can get in touch at another point. So it's still worth it, in my opinion.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Carolyn?
Yeah, so I had a question regarding kind of the technical interview. I am in particular interested in being a UX developer, and I know there is starting to be a shift from really algorithm heavy technical interviews to more like code assessments and code projects. So I was curious kind of where Allie lands on that spectrum.
I have had, in my experience was that I didn't have to do any sort of whiteboard coding or answer questions about irrelevant algorithms that had nothing to do with the day-to-day life of a UX developer. But I did have to answer questions about CSS, JavaScript, HTML, performance, accessibility, any experience that I had with backend work, experience that I had with design. And I did have to, you are asked to submit code samples, and you may be asked to do a small project or to submit additional code samples. But one of the things that I appreciated about the technical interviews is that everything was relevant. I'm sorry, my cat's like right here on my table. Is that everything was relevant to what a UX developer does on a day-to-day basis, that it wasn't anything that it was. And I think that the same thing goes for the software developer role. They will ask you things that are relevant to the type of work that we do. It's not about making the interviewer look smart or making the candidate sweat, or somebody trying to show off that they have a computer science degree or something like that. I found it to be a very compassionate process.
Thank you. Samuel?
Yes, first of all, thank you guys for doing this. Totally amazing and very informative. Actually, I've been a fan of Ali for a couple of years now. Who would have thought got a chance to sit in an event such as this? But to my question, I think somebody just pushed that in the chat. Literally, when you say code samples, what exactly do you mean by that? And what I'm looking for is, like in my instance, I've done code for projects where you need dependencies. I've wrote code where it's just pure code, no dependencies needed, and you just go to GitHub, you download it, and you run it. I've had multiple codes where you work with JavaScript and Ruby on Rails at the same time. So what are you looking for with that?
It's a super good question. We are looking for, I'm going to post in chat the link to our best practices on this. We tend to ask people to share links to GitHub repositories. We want to actually see the code you've written, or you could share a pen if you have a pen or a sandbox somewhere. And we ask people to be really clear, obviously, if they're working on client projects with another company or with other team members, just to be really specific about what they wrote and what they're doing. Obviously, links to live apps. If you're running, I don't know, on Heroku or one of the other stacks, if you have a live app that you've built, linking to something working is great, but we really come down to let's see the code you write, let's see it in a repo, and how you structure it, and we ask you specific questions from there.
Wonderful. My follow-up to that is, if you don't have a live app, so to speak, but you kind of created a demo for that and combine that with a GitHub where it's where you kind of host a repository, what have you, would that still function or fill that blank for what you're looking for?
Yeah, I think so. I think you could actually absolutely, as long as as long as you tell us what we're looking at, I think
Right.
it'll absolutely count. We're more interested in the brain behind the code than how quickly you can write an elegant loop. You know what I mean?
Okay, sounds
Yeah.
wonderful. And the last one part of that question is, does year matter? Does years matter with this? Because I'm more Node, JavaScript, React Native, which is like my new kid now.
Mhm.
So I don't have PHP experiences like earlier question, but I am willing to learn that. So would that still be relevant in this process?
Yeah, I will tell you that I saw a couple questions about like what level of experience was needed to apply, and again, Ali has previous to now been looking more for mid-career people, but now with our initiatives to bring in a more diverse workforce, we recognize that opportunities are different for everybody. And so we actually have an internal initiative too to help developers with training. And it's why we're putting such an emphasis on professional development. So we do primarily work in PHP and JavaScript, and then the foundational, HTML and CSS. Those are probably our two biggest languages that we're working in right now. But it's always helpful to have React people. We've had a little bit of Vue projects happening. We haven't done any React Native yet, but it doesn't mean we couldn't. I know a couple of clients who would really like that. So we are open to helping folks grow at this point in our growth. We're figuring out what that looks like, and we're willing to have the conversations to make it work. Really, if you like us and we like you, we will make it work.
Amazing. Very grateful. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. So I want to be mindful of everyone's time. So much, everyone. Let's thank Max and Christina for giving us that great presentation and answering all of our questions. Is there any way for Trabaja members to, if they weren't able to ask questions, maybe dropping your LinkedIn or allowing them to ask questions in our Slack channel, if you're a part of our Slack channel?
Yeah, I would be happy to join your Slack channel. I am not yet a part of it, but that would probably be the best way. We're in Slack 100% of the time, so I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, awesome. So if you're not a part of our Slack, please go to trabaja.co, create a free profile, a free candidate profile, and then you'll get an invitation to our Slack channel where we're about over 2,500 members right now, and we're growing every single day. And so we are constantly inviting amazing tech startups, just like Ali, who are on a mission to diversify their workforce. So excited for this. Please, if you are qualified, if you're super interested, apply. Be confident in your abilities that you can do it and you can be great. This has been amazing. Thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day.